Hello, hello. We are live. Welcome to our weekly prep cook. In today's live stream, we're going to cook our green asparagus soup, which is part of our weekly meal plan. My name is Frank Kramer. I am the founder of Eat Like a Vegan Chef. And today we're going to cook one meal out of our meal plan for next week. So we also call it batch cooking, but I only cook one meal out of the meal plan for next week. So usually I advise when you start to batch cook, you want to cook 2 or 3 meals out of the meal plan, which is much more convenient for you throughout the week. If you have all your meals ready throughout the week, that will set you up for success. So the reason why we do this batch cooking is basically, let's say on a Wednesday afternoon you come home and you have no food. What are you going to do? You're bound to order in or go out. So from that point of view, we want to make sure we have food ready so we don't uh, steer too far away from our regular meal plan. So just if you don't mind, just introduce yourself or just say hello. It would be always nice to see who is there. It's nice to talk to an audience because otherwise I will not be able to see you. Thank you. Okay, so for everyone who just joined, we're going to cook a green asparagus soup. Asparagus is in season right now, and so we want to make sure that whenever we prepare meals for the upcoming week, that those ingredients are seasonal. Makes it um, much easier to shop. It's easier on your pocket. It's more sustainable, and the nutrients in seasonal foods are so much better. Okay, welcome everyone. Okay, um, let's get started. First of all, I would like to give you a little bit of an idea about asparagus, how we, how to identify how, what asparagus, what good asparagus looks like and what you should avoid. But you know what? Let's get started with our sauteing our onions, and then we will go over the asparagus. Change my camera quickly. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to saute onions and garlic over medium to high heat. I have already cut my onions, and as usual, we cook without oil. So I'm just going to add a little bit of water to it. Make sure that you get a perfect view on this. So we're going to saute the onions just until they're translucent. I'm going to chop a little bit of garlic here. So I have about half a cup of onions, 1 to 2 cloves of garlic, and we want to make sure that our onions are going to cook slowly, and I don't want them to caramelize. So that's really, really important, very important. Usually I like to caramelize my onions because that gives a lot of flavor. But since asparagus soup is more or less one of the white soups, um, I do not want any color in my asparagus soup. Later, when we cook the asparagus, we want to make sure the asparagus stays nice and green. And I know I have mentioned in my recipe to cook the asparagus about 10 minutes. You can actually reduce it to 5 minutes, and I will show you a trick how to do this. I'm going to turn on my heat a little bit. Again, I do not want my onions to caramelize. Just add a little bit of water to it. So the importance is that the onions need to be fully cooked before we add our broth to it. Simply because the the longer we cook our onions, the sweeter they become. And I don't know if you have ever realized this when you go to your grandma and you have food, and the food tastes to die for. It tastes so delicious and almost sweet to the point. This is exactly what's happening. When you cook your vegetables, especially your onions, long enough, they become sweeter. We're adding a little bit of celery. What's the onion? Just a little bit. Okay, now it's time to add our broth. You can add broth or water. Going to add 4 cups of water. Okay, I'm going to turn the heat up high. And now I'm going to explain to you how you can identify good asparagus. So now we're going to let this start to boil. Okay, I'm back. Okay, So I just got the asparagus, and when you buy asparagus, you want to make sure that you see the head. Um, I don't know if you can see this. Needs to be really nice and firm. Cannot really tell. So that's very important. If the head is mushy, this one is a little bit mushy. Um, there you can tell the asparagus is getting old. This one is very good. It's firm, really firm. That's great. You also want to make sure that the color is nice and green and not blemished. Like this one is getting slightly brown here, so you don't want this. Um, you also want to make sure that the asparagus is firm. So you want to make sure that the it's crisp. So in order to avoid the woody part of the asparagus, we're just going to bend the asparagus, and right there where it breaks is where the woody part starts. So this part is what you can use, and this part we can use to make soup. I mean, that's what we do, but obviously I'm going to show you how to do this and how to use the woody part for soups. Okay, so let me just quickly cut the asparagus. And I want to make sure that we avoid the woody part. And then we're going to cut it in small pieces. Okay. You want to keep a few pieces as for decoration. 3 of the tips maybe. And the rest we're going to use. Okay, so this goes into our soup, and we want to keep a few pieces for our soup as some texture. We need this on the side. Okay. Good. Our water is cooking. I'm going to switch my camera quickly so you can see what I do. So we want to make sure that our onions are fully cooked, because we do not want them to be half cooked. Again, that's because of the sweetness. So now we're going to add our asparagus. And the reason why I cut it so small is because I want to puree it later. So as I mentioned before, you can use the pieces which we cut off, the woody part. You can put some in here. Now you just have to fish them out before you puree the soup. So in the meanwhile, I'm going to bring this to a boil, and then I reduce the heat to medium to low and let it simmer for about 5 to 8 minutes, just so that the asparagus is slightly cooked but I still want a green. I don't want my asparagus to get gray because then the soup turns gray too. In the meanwhile, I'm going to puree my white beans. And I do this by using a little bit of that liquid in here. So the reason why we use beans is first of all for the protein, and second for the creaminess. We don't use cream, obviously. That's why we use the white beans. The white beans are our protein, and it gives the soup the velvety consistency. I'm going to pour it quickly. Okay, now I'm going to turn down the heat. I can also add the beans to the soup. I don't have to puree them separately. So that makes it actually much easier. I'll turn on the heat so that it simmers. Yes, Ginger, you have a good question. Why can't you puree the woody part as well? You can if you want. Um, I personally don't like the woody part, and there because you never can really get rid of the woody part 100%. It's gonna. What you can do is you can puree it, and then you have to um, strain it one more time. You could do this, but I'm just used to just cook the woody part and then take it out. Yes, Sherry, you're right. In the recipe, it says add celery and asparagus together, but I gave you a slightly different variety here, simply because I do not want the asparagus to overcook. That's why um, I added the asparagus a little bit later. Good point, Sherry. Okay, so I'm going to check how far my asparagus is. It's still al dente. Actually, it's not even al dente, it's still hard. So we're going to cook it for a few more minutes until it starts to get al dente, almost soft. And then we're going to puree the soup. Sherry's asking if the tips be uncooked. I kept a few tips on the side. I don't know if you can see this. That's for decoration. You can, I prefer it uncooked, but obviously you can cook it for just a few seconds or a minute just to soften it, absolutely. Not yet. As soon as I see that the pieces become a little bit tender, that's the cue to puree the soup. Almost there. So the key in this asparagus soup is to keep the color as green as possible. For that, we want to add a little bit of lemon juice, about a half a lemon. See, the asparagus is still nice and green. It's turning softer. So now it's the time to take out the woody part. I don't want it in here. Feel free to leave it in and puree it. Okay, I'm going to turn off the heat. And now I'm going to transfer it into my blender. If I would suggest that you let your soup cool out and then put it in a blender, because you actually put a lot of pressure. I'm going to give it a little spin. It's absolutely phenomenal. The asparagus smells so fantastic. And you can tell the color is still nice and green. And you can see I have combined the beans with the soup, and the soup has a nice velvety consistency. That's what we want. Now I'm gonna bring it one more time to a boil. And then I'm going to season the soup. If you add salt to it, now's the time to add salt. Okay, let's taste it. And the soup is almost ready. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add a few of the asparagus pieces in the soup, just to give it a little crunch. Soup comes one more time to a boil. I'll taste it one more time. Very important, you always want to make sure that you taste your soups or your food just before it's finished. Okay, so now we can serve it. And that's a big soup bowl, but it's fine. Decorate it with a little bit of asparagus. If you want, you can add a few more on top, a few more pieces. I'm going to switch my camera in just a second so you can see what it is all about. Switching my phone. So I'm not sure if you can see it here. Not as good. So that's basically your asparagus soup. Very, very simple. Yes, ginger, absolutely. I put To give the soup a little texture, I added raw asparagus to the soup. You don't have to do that. You can cook it maybe for a minute or two just to give it a little um, tenderness to it. But I like the texture to it. So while I add the raw asparagus to the soup, it gets heated a little bit, but it doesn't get cooked. So you still have this crunchiness to it. And I like this in a soup. But feel free to cook it a little bit. Thanks, everyone. Okay, that's basically it. Very, very simple. You can create a soup from almost any vegetable. Excuse me, asparagus is one of those simple soups, but yet you don't want to overcook it. If you cook it too long, it becomes bitter. So you don't, excuse me, you don't want this. That's a good question. If you roast the asparagus, yes, if you can roast the asparagus, then you get obviously a roasting flavor in the soup, and you actually change everything in there. You change the flavor, you change the color. It's up to you. You can try it and see if you like it. Absolutely. Um, it gives you a little bit different tasting point, so to speak. You can do this with so many vegetables. You know that from broccoli, for instance. You know that from onions itself. Onion soup becomes really sweet. As broccoli soup is very, very similar to asparagus soup. Obviously, tastes slightly different, but um, so from that point of view, you can use any type of vegetables and make a soup out of it. That's the beauty. So what I'm showing you here is just basically, you know, it's one vegetable. You can use any other vegetable out there to make either a cream soup or a clear soup or just a mixed vegetable soup as well. No, Ginger, you could actually make a soup from Brussels sprouts as well. Yeah. Bitter melon soup, obviously, that's kind of bitter, very bitter, but also very, very healthy. You can make soups out of spinach, kale. Um, we have a very famous soup in the Caribbean called kalaloo soup. Kalaloo is similar to mixture of spinach and Swiss chard, I would say, makes an unbelievable, delicious soup. So from the the sky's the limit when it comes to vegetable soups. That's why I show you very simple soups here, and you can just take it from there and make or take any kind of vegetable that you have at hand and make a soup out of it. Important is that you add the protein to it through the white beans. If you have, for instance, black bean soup, that's a very protein-rich soup. um, you can make really delicious black bean soups, as we have in the meal plans as well. Uh, Important is that you add some sort of protein to it, either white beans, black beans, whatever this color of the soup it is. If it's a white soup, you want to use white beans, obviously. If it's a darker soup, you can use pinto beans or black beans, even uh, kidney beans. Okay, good. That's it for me. Let's see if you have any questions about the meal plans. This week is for breakfast. We have our, where is it? Spring salad bowl. Very, very simple. For some of you, you may not have all the ingredients ready, available. For instance, here in Florida, the strawberries are available everywhere because the strawberry season or it's almost over. Um, Apples, you still get apples. Apricots, probably not yet. It's probably ready in a few weeks. You can use bananas instead for the spring salad bowl, but other than that, everything should be available. You have the choice of overnight oats if you like. Um, the other soup we have available this week is miso vegetable soup, one of my favorite soups. It has a lot of taste, a lot of flavor, a lot of umami in there. Um, then we have the cabbage and chickpea stew. Basically, the pictures you see in there is I filled cabbage leaves. I actually bought baby cabbage and then took some leaves off and filled it. Um, Let me know if you have any other questions. For Easter, I created the lentil loaf. That is something a little bit more special. It's a little bit more work to be done. I added a video to it. It's also on YouTube. You can look it up. I had nut crusted Easter lentil loaf. Um, it's one of my favorites. It's a little bit more work, but it tastes really, really delicious. For the weekend, I have added a chickpea omelette. That's something you can splurge on. You can even have it on your rewards day. Okay, let's see if we have any questions. Okay, I have red miso in the house. Can it be substituted? Yeah, you can use red. The difference between red miso and white miso is red is much, much more intensive, so use less. White miso is not as intensive. That's the difference. Okay, good. Yeah, if you don't have any other questions, then I would say enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and I'll see you throughout the week. Okay, have a great day, everyone. Anyone who is on YouTube, please give it a thumbs up if you like this live stream. And there's also a few informations. If you like to join Eat Like a Vegan Chef membership, you can do this. Um, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me or leave a comment. If you like me to cover a different dish or a different recipe, leave it in the comments and I will consider this going forward. Okay. Brenda's saying I'm stuck on my French toast. Good, good, good. Excellent. Yeah, that's a good way to start your weekend. Okay. Have a great day, everyone. Be safe and think plant based.